He stopped in the middle of the sidewalk as if he had been hit in the chest. 3 kids, 3 boys with the same green eyes he saw every day in the mirror. One of them was chewing on a straw. The other was trying to balance a toy car in the palm of his hand. The third was pulling at a woman's dress, and this woman, despite the time that had passed, was unmistakable. It was her, Camilla, the woman he loved, the woman he had been married to, and now she was there with 3 boys who seemed to have walked straight out of his childhood. You're about to witness one of the most impactful stories of your life. Watch it until the end, and I assure you that the way you see life will never be the same again. But what would you do if suddenly you discovered you have 3 children and no one ever told you? What if the woman you left behind 6 years ago was right there, in front of you, with living proof of what you lost? The answer to the first question is simple. You would freeze. And the second, it depends. It depends on how much of her you still carry inside you. In that moment, Mateo Ramirez, a millionaire and respected businessman in Los Angeles, was certain of one thing: no contract, no success, no luxury he had built outside the country would be enough to fill the hole that opened in his chest. He didn't know why he told the driver to let him off and continue the rest of the way on foot. Maybe he wanted to smell the air of the city where he grew up. Maybe he just wanted to walk. But it was during this random walk that everything changed. When he passed in front of the market, he heard a voice that made him stop in his tracks. "Liam, don't run. Gael, give your brother back his toy. Tiago, stay here by my side." That firm yet sweet tone, it had to be her. He turned his head and there she was, Camilla, kneeling down, tying one of the boy's shoes. But it was when he looked into the boy's eyes that he felt the ground disappear. They were practically copies of him. The same type of hair, the same chin shape, even the same way of furrowing their brows. He couldn't move. The world around him seemed distant. Cars passed, people spoke, horns honked. But Mateo stood there, frozen, his heart pounding. And then, without meaning to, he murmured her name, "Camilla!" She lifted her face. Their eyes met, and for a second, everything froze. It was like reliving 1,000 things in one glance. She paled, and time once again seemed to stop. Mateo wanted to approach, but didn't know how. He wanted to say something, ask, understand, but the words were gone. And before he could react, one of the boys looked straight at him. "Mom, who's that man?" Camilla turned quickly and pulled the boys closer. There was shock in her eyes, but also something else, a mix of fear and anger. "Mateo," she whispered, almost voiceless. He took a step forward, swallowing hard. "Camilla, those boys..." But before he could finish the sentence, she interrupted him. "We need to go." She grabbed all 3 of their hands and started walking quickly toward the parking lot. Mateo followed, still stunned. "Wait, I just want to talk, please." Camilla stopped for a second, turned around with a tense face, and pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her bag. She wrote something on the back of a receipt and handed it to him. "Tomorrow, noon, Café Coral on Maple Street." And she left, pulling the children with her. Mateo stood still, holding the paper in his hands, unsure if all of this was real or if he had just woken up from an old dream, one that never quite fades away. That night, he couldn't sleep. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he stared out the window at the Los Angeles sky, trying to fit together the pieces of a puzzle he had destroyed years ago. Camilla. 3 children, about 6 years old. The timeline matched. The math was simple. But the explanation, not so much. Why had she never said anything? Why hide his children from him? Or maybe she had tried and he hadn't wanted to listen. He remembered that in the first months after their separation, he had isolated himself from the world. He submerged himself in work, changed his number, ignored emails. He was afraid of anything that could tie him down. Now that fear seemed ridiculous. In front of what he had seen on that sidewalk, all his projects, the millions, the trips, they seemed irrelevant. He looked at his own reflection in the mirror and wondered who that man was. A professional success, yes, but personally, a complete absentee. Maybe, without realizing it, he had run from something he now wanted more than anything, to be a father. For the first time in a long time, Matteo felt a tightness in his chest that wasn't guilt. It was pure regret. The next day, Matteo arrived at Café Corral half an hour before the scheduled time. He chose a corner table, ordered a coffee that cooled without him touching it, and kept staring at the door. When the clock hit exactly noon, she walked in. Camilla. She was thinner than he remembered, with a tired face, but her eyes, still the same. She saw him from a distance, walked over with firm steps, and sat down without saying a word. For a moment, the silence between them seemed deafening until he broke it. "They're mine, aren't they?" She took her time to respond. She studied his face, as if looking for signs of regret or sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Yes, Matteo, they're your children." He swallowed hard. The confirmation wasn't a surprise, but hearing it said out loud hurt more than he expected. "Why didn't you tell me?" Camilla let out a long sigh. "You left me. You said you needed to focus on yourself, on growing, on becoming someone. I tried calling you. I sent messages. I even went to your company. But you disappeared." Her voice wasn't bitter. It was just real. And that hurt even more. Matteo lowered his eyes, feeling a shame that couldn't fit in his chest. He remembered the ignored calls, the deleted emails that went unopened. He thought he was protecting himself from the pain, but deep down, he was running from responsibility. "Camilla, I have no excuses. I failed. But I want to be part of their lives now. I want to get to know them." She looked at him again, but this time there was hardness in her gaze. "You can't just show up and think everything will be fine. They don't know you. And I don't trust you. Not anymore." There was a pause. Matteo took a deep breath. "Let me try. The way you want it, at the pace you think is best. Just give me a chance." Camilla thought for a moment, then grabbed a napkin from the table and wrote down an address. "Friday, 6 o'clock. Come to my house. They'll have already eaten. I can't promise anything, but you'll be able to meet them." He took the paper as if it were too fragile to crumple. "Thank you, really." She stood up. "Don't thank me yet. To them, you're just a stranger. And to me, you were the biggest mistake of my life." And she left, leaving the empty cup and Matteo in pieces. On Friday, Matteo parked the car exactly at 5:55 p.m. in front of Camilla's house. It was a modest neighborhood, filled with kids playing on the sidewalks and wooden fences that needed paint. Very different from the luxury he was used to. He got out of the car with 3 identical bags in his hands, each one with a carefully chosen gift. Camilla had asked him to come dressed casually. No expensive watch, no suit. He followed her instructions to the letter. He wanted to look like someone real, someone possible. The doorbell rang, and for a few seconds, everything went silent. Then the door opened. Camilla appeared, with a tense expression. "They're in the living room. They already know you're coming, but they don't know everything." Matteo nodded and entered. The house was small, but welcoming. Toys scattered around, drawings on the walls, the smell of homemade food. As he turned down the hallway, he saw the 3 of them, sitting side by side on the couch, as if waiting for an interview. 3 faces that looked like different versions of his own. His heart raced. His hands sweated. Camilla knelt beside them. "Boys, this is Matteo. He is your dad." The silence was immediate. Liam was the first to stand up. "I'm Liam. I'm 6 years old. I was born first, 4 minutes before the others." Matteo smiled and shook his extended hand with respect. Gael stood up next, more cautious. "And are you really our dad? How come we don't know?" "You?" Matteo crouched down at their level. "I didn't know you existed, but now that I do, I want to get to know each one of you." The third boy, Tiago, remained seated, arms crossed with a serious face. "You didn't come because you didn't want to. That's why." The sentence cut through the air. Matteo swallowed hard. Camilla put her hand on her son's shoulder, but he didn't take his eyes off Matteo. "Tiago," she said in a soft tone. But he didn't back down. Matteo took a deep breath. "You're right. I wasn't here, and I know that a gift doesn't change that. But I brought an airplane for each of you. They're the same." He placed the bags on the floor, not expecting any gratitude. It was only the beginning, and he knew it would be a long road. Liam was the first to open the gift, his eyes lit up. "It's just like the one I saw on TV, thanks." Gael also smiled shyly. "I like it, thank you." Tiago, on the other hand, didn't even touch the bag. He just watched his brothers assemble the pieces without moving. Matteo didn't insist. He just said, "It's there for you if you want it, no rush." He then sat down on the floor with them, trying not to feel out of place, even though he was shaking inside. Gradually, the questions started to come. Have you ever been on a real plane? Do you have a dog? What's your favorite movie? Matteo answered each one, trying to be light-hearted. He laughed with them, listened, commented. Camilla watched from afar, sitting in the kitchen chair, with her arms crossed and her eyes focused. She was watching but not interfering. It was as if she too was testing whether this new Matteo was real or just another disappointment waiting to happen. At one point, Liam picked up a framed photo and brought it to him. "This is us at Christmas. Mom did everything on her own, even the turkey." Matteo looked at the picture for a few seconds and felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't there, not in this one, nor in any other photo. Time passed too quickly. When Camilla announced it was time for a bath, the kids complained, "Just a little longer, Mom." Matteo smiled but respected it. "I'll come back another day, I promise." The boys ran down the hall, except Tiago, who stayed in the same spot. When Matteo got up, he looked Tiago in the eyes and asked softly, "Are you really coming back?" It was the first time he spoke without anger. Matteo crouched down, looked him firmly in the eyes and replied, "I will, every week, if you let me." Tiago didn't answer. He just got up and walked out slowly. At the door, Camilla held the doorknob firmly. "They liked you. Even Tiago, he just pretends not to care, but he's paying attention to everything." Matteo shook his head, his eyes filled with tears. "They're amazing. You did it all on your own. I don't know how." She took a deep breath. "Neither do I. I just knew I couldn't stop." He hesitated. "Can I take them to the park on Sunday? Only if you think it's okay." She thought for a moment. "Sure, but no delays, and no phone in your pocket. If you're going to divide your attention, it's better not to go." He smiled humbly. "Understood." On Sunday, Matteo arrived at the park early. He parked the car and waited at the entrance with a soccer ball in his hands and a small cooler with sandwiches and juice. He wanted to show he was trying, that it wasn't just words. When Camilla arrived with the boys, Liam came running. "You brought the ball! I told you he'd bring it, Mom." Gail followed right, behind, more reserved, but with a sincere smile. Tiago was last, wearing a cap and sunglasses, with an almost professional air. "You brought lunch too?" he asked. Matteo smiled. "It's all here." They spent the morning playing soccer, running, falling on the grass. Matteo got completely dirty, but he didn't mind. He laughed like he hadn't in years. At one point, he sat with Tiago under the shade of a tree, just the two of them. "You like to draw, don't you?" he asked. The boy looked up, surprised. "How do you know?" "I saw your notebooks on the shelf the other day. You draw really well." Tiago shrugged, trying to hide a smile. "No one ever told me that." Matteo responded without hesitation. "Well, it's time for them to start saying it." Camilla watched them from a distance, sitting on a bench, while Gail and Liam tried to build a hut with branches. It was strange to see them like this. Together, laughing, connecting. She didn't trust fully, but she couldn't deny that there was something different about Matteo. He wasn't just trying to please, he was present with eyes, ears, and heart. When she approached, Matteo looked at her and said, "I want to be part of this, Camilla, for real, even if I have to rebuild everything from scratch." She didn't respond immediately. She just said, "Let's see if you can stick around when the hard part comes." That evening, as she put the kids in the car, Camilla turned and asked, "Do you have plans for Wednesday night?" Matteo answered, "If it's with them, I do." She smiled slightly, for the first time in a long time. "There's a meeting at school, parents and teachers. You should come." He nodded. "I'll be there. Just tell me the time." She typed it in his phone, and before getting in the car said, "The school is the only one that still asks about you without knowing who you are. It's time to change that." And she left, leaving Matteo with a heart full of hope and a mission more clear than ever. On Wednesday, Matteo arrived at the school 15 minutes before the scheduled time. He wore jeans, a button-up shirt rolled up to the elbows, and carried a folder with some drawings Tiago had dropped on Sunday. The school was simple but full of life. Kids running, handmade posters on the walls, tired but kind staff. When he said his name at the reception, the lady furrowed her brow. "You're the father of the triplets," he confirmed with an awkward smile. "Yes. What have they been up to?" She laughed. "Nothing, but we almost never see their father here." The meeting began, with parents settling into the small chairs of the children, trying to look calm. Camilla arrived a few minutes later and sat next to him. "I never thought I'd see you here," he whispered back. "Neither did I, but I'm trying to make it count." The boy's teacher began to speak. When she mentioned Tiago, praising his artistic sensitivity, Matteo felt a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Later, when Liam was cited as the natural leader of the class and Gael as the most curious, he could barely hold back his tears. After the meeting, some parents approached Camilla to greet her. A few looked at Matteo with curiosity, others with a certain disguised judgment. He understood. There, he was still the absent father who was coming back now. It wasn't enough to show up once or twice. He had to stay, and they wanted to see how long it would last. When leaving, Tiago was waiting with his brothers. "You really came," he said, with his backpack on his back. Matteo crouched down. "I told you I'd come. A promise is a promise." Tiago looked at Camilla, then back at him. "Then come pick us up tomorrow too, with snacks." Matteo smiled. "It's a deal." That night, back at home, he opened his laptop and began to reorganize his life. He cancelled trips, delegated tasks, asked for a slower pace at work. He didn't want to be remembered as the guy who showed up too late. Above all, he wanted his kids to know he was there. For real. For the first time. Without running away, without excuses, without pretty excuses. just him, whole, taking the place that had always been his, and now, more than ever, determined not to leave again. In the days that followed, Matteo started picking the kids up from school 3 times a week. He prepared snacks, listened to stories about their day, asked about exams. Nothing extraordinary, but it was all new to him. He started memorizing the names of their classmates, helped look for lost uniforms, and even attended a school committee meeting where he listened without complaining to an old lady grumbling about the trees in the yard. Camilla watched everything carefully. She didn't melt, didn't praise, but let it happen. That already said a lot. On any given Saturday, while washing the dishes in Camilla's house after lunch, she came into the kitchen with an envelope in hand. The school sent this, an end-of-year project. They have to present it with the family. Matteo dried his hands, took the envelope, and smiled. Then we'll present it as a group. Camilla stayed silent for a moment, then said, "You know there will still be tough days, right?" He replied without hesitation, "I know, and I'm ready. I won't leave again." For the first time, she believed. At the end of that month, the kids performed a little play at school. Tiago played the piano, Gail narrated the story, and Liam was the protagonist. When the teacher asked into the microphone who helped at home with the costumes and preparation, all eyes turned to Matteo, sitting in the front row with his eyes shining and the camera trembling in his hands. Tiago gave him a discreet wave. Matteo responded with a smile. There, in that small gesture, was everything he had spent months trying to rebuild: connection. On the way out, Camilla walked beside him while the boys ran toward the car. "You did it, you know," she said softly. "What did I do?" he asked. "Became a father, for real." Matteo didn't answer. He just smiled, with tears in his eyes, and looked at his 3 kids, now shouting, jumping, and calling for him. In that moment, he was certain of one thing: life is not measured by how many times you get it right, but by the courage to return and do it differently. And he returned. Late, yes, but just in time. Phrase of the day: true presence doesn't begin when you arrive, but when you decide never to leave. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the bell, because part 2 of this emotional journey is on its way, and you won't want to miss it. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I'd love to know how far this story has reached. See you in the next video.